I want to take you now to a press conference at MedStar Hospital in Washington, where we're getting an update on Steve Scalise, the Louisiana congressman, shot on Wednesday at a charity baseball game. Let's listen in.
Dr. Jack Sava, who is Director of Trauma, will be sharing with you a little update on the condition of the two patients who were brought to us from the tragic shooting in Virginia earlier this week. He will take questions after this, a few questions. Two things. In some cases, he won't be able to answer all of the questions to try to protect our patients' privacy as much as possible, but we are going to share some additional information with you. He also has another meeting to go to right after this. Our residents are graduating this evening, so he is heading to that. So we are trying to keep this somewhat tight. We do have a printed copy after this program is, or after this briefing is over. We have a printed copy of his remarks, so you'll have that for your records. Before Dr. Sava joins us, though, I'd like to introduce Brett Horton, who is the Chief of Staff for Congressman Steve Scalise, and he has something he'd like to read on behalf of the family. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Brett Horton, and I'm Whip Scalise's Chief of Staff. I have a brief statement from Jennifer Scalise regarding Wednesday's attack. On behalf of Steve and our children, I want to thank everyone from the bottom of our hearts for the incredible amount of prayers and warm wishes that we have received since Wednesday's events. We are especially appreciative of the strong outpouring of love and support from our neighbors, friends from across Louisiana and across the country, as well as President Trump, Vice President Pence, and all of Steve's colleagues who have reached out during this challenging time. Most importantly, we are forever grateful for the heroism of Special Agents Crystal Griner and David Bailey, who saved the lives of everyone at the baseball field that morning, including Steve's. Crystal and David have been family to us for years, and we ask that you continue to pray for their full recovery. I would also like to personally thank all of the first responders who bravely assisted at the scene, as well as the entire staff of MedStar Washington Hospital Center for their continued excellent care. Our family asks that you continue to pray for Steve, Matt Micah, Zach Barth, and all of those hurt in this attack, and keep them in your thoughts and prayers during their recovery. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Jack Sava, the Director of Trauma at MedStar Washington Hospital Center. I'm here to give you an update on the two patients that we cared for after the shooting in Alexander, Virginia on June 14th. Special Agent Crystal Griner of the United States Capitol Police sustained an ankle gunshot wound. She remains in the hospital. She's in good condition and she's in good spirits. Congressman Scalise sustained a single rifle wound that entered in the area of the left hip. It traveled directly across towards the other hip in what we call a transpelvic gunshot wound. The round fragmented and did substantial damage to bones, internal organs, and blood vessels. I understand he was awake on scene, but by the time he was transported by helicopter to the MedStar Trauma Center, he was in shock. My partners, Dr. Tony Shiflett and Dr. Christine Trankium, saw him in the trauma center with the other doctors and nurses there. They treated him there and quickly brought him to the operating room where we performed surgery. In the operating room, he was in critical condition and received many units of transfused blood for ongoing hemorrhage from multiple locations. He received truly amazing anesthesia care from Dr. Eric Skolnick and Dr. Scott Frank. Due to their great work, we were able to get him through that procedure, and we then took him to the radiology suite where he underwent an additional procedure by Dr. Arshad Khan to further control bleeding. From there, we went to the intensive care unit where he got additional care under the direction of Dr. Chadi Abouasili, and he remains in the ICU today. Yesterday, Dr. Trankium and I did an additional operation, and Dr. Robert Golden, our Director of Orthopedic Trauma, did an operation to repair a broken bone in his leg. The Congressman's status remains critical. We are encouraged by improvement in his condition over the last 36 hours. We have controlled the internal bleeding, and his vital signs have stabilized. He will require additional operations to manage abdominal injuries and other bone injuries. Predicting the length of his hospital stay is difficult today. Presumably it will be easier in some days when more time has passed and we have more information. After he leaves the hospital, he will require a period of healing and of rehabilitation. On behalf of the MedStar Trauma Team, I want to thank the special agents on the scene as well as the first responders for everything that they did for those shooting victims. We are all well aware here at the MedStar Washington Hospital Center of all that those folks did to save these people. We here salute their commitment, their dedication, and their skill. I can answer a few questions, but as Donna said, it's possible that we will not be able to answer all the questions due to privacy concerns.
Dr. Sava, just a factual question here. You described multiple procedures. There's been some confusion because many of us are not medical professionals. What is the fair assessment of how many surgeries he had? You talk about it going in and out of the biologic. So what's the best way to characterize these procedures and how many?
Well, there's actually a bit of semantic confusion there, and I leave it to you how to characterize. I think the reason for the semantic confusion is he went from an operation to a procedure that I mentioned in interventional radiology. Typically, we don't call that an operation or a surgery, although really it has many similarities. There's anesthesia, and in many ways it resembles an operation.
Did he come back up from anesthesia between the two?
No. The second possible point of confusion is that yesterday he underwent an operation that involved two separate surgical teams. It was in the same room in one continuous sitting with one set of anesthesia, but at first it was my team doing abdominal surgery and then Dr. Golden's team doing orthopedic surgery. So again, the opportunity for confusion about whether you count that as one or two.
And as a medical professional, you would, and from you reading one of our articles, the number you would say would be what? The most accurate?
Two.
Thank you.
What are your major concerns going forward at this point in terms of his recovery, and do you expect Mr. Scalise to live in most respects a normal life, and what are the limitations that you foresee based on your experience?
Well, I don't want to get too far out ahead of myself. All of us who care for severely injured patients are very reluctant in the first few days to start predicting which way things can go with all the branches in the road that are to come. Usually, the initial period is about hemorrhage control, and I feel like we've made a lot of progress about that, and hopefully that is not going to be our biggest enemy any longer. Other things to worry about include infections and other complications that come about from intensive care.
And in terms of rehabilitation?
Well, hopefully you'll have an opportunity at some point to maybe talk to Dr. Golden about the orthopedic aspects. I think that we fully expect him to be able to walk, to be able to do, again, I don't want to speak to Dr. Golden, but my understanding is that he will be able to walk and hopefully run. As far as the degree of athletic limitation, I think I will kick all that to Dr. Golden to answer.
Doctor, you kind of addressed this a little bit already, but I think a lot of people heard shot in the hip and then were surprised to hear that he was in critical condition. Can you describe what made these injuries so severe or so difficult to treat?
Well, I think I've thought about that because I was surprised by some of the reports also. I would encourage you to talk to your military medical colleagues about what it means to be shot with a high-velocity rifle in the hip region, because most of us would not even think to consider that a benign wound. As I said, in his case, the major initial risk to life is because of the hemorrhage that results when that bullet travels through blood vessels.
So it's a bleeding.
It's a bleeding thing.
Dr. Sava, has he been conscious at all during his time in the hospital? Has he been able to talk to his family, to any of friends or anything like that? Has he been able to take visitors?
He's been sedated, but we've been able to turn down that sedation enough for him to respond to his family members, and he clearly knows that they're there and appreciates their presence.
Does he seem to understand at all what he's going through at this point?
I don't want to get into the details of what I think he's going through. I think that we're happy to see that he can respond to us and to the family.
Dr. Sava, was the broken leg a result of that bullet splintering once it entered his hip, or was that did that happen when he fell after he was shot?
No, it was a result of the bullet.
Is the bullet, you guys have gotten all pieces of the bullet out? Where are you in that status?
Typically, that's the first question that gunshot victims ask is, when are you taking the bullet out? It's quite common that we don't remove bullets and fragments, and that's the case here as well. That I have not counted, but I would guess that there are hundreds of fragments, and usually there's more risk involved in trying to find and remove those fragments than benefit. So we have no intention to try to remove all bullet fragments at this point. I think we've decided we're not going to get into too much detail about specific internal injuries at this time.
Dr.
Yes, sir.
Agent Greiner, when might she be released?
I don't have information on that. Dr. Golden has operated on her, and I don't know the answer to that.
Only one surgery for her?
She has had one operation at this point. Dr. Golden could answer as to whether additional work will be needed.
Bottom line right now, you sound optimistic about your congressman.
Well, I like to say it's my job to be pessimistic, and so if you accuse me of being optimistic, I feel bad about that. I feel a lot more confident and a lot more optimistic than I did 2-3 days ago.
How serious of a situation, how would you describe the seriousness of it when he was first here and the risk that he could possibly die?
I would say that when he arrived, he was in critical condition with an imminent risk of death.
How long will he be in the hospital, do you think?
Again, it's too hard to say at this point. Once we get through a few more days, we might be able to prognosticate a little better, but now there are just too many forks in the road and to say when the final day is. He will certainly be in the hospital for a considerable period of time, presumably weeks.
I was surprised to hear you say that you expect him to walk again and even perhaps run again, given the fact that his hip was shattered. Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that the main support structure of the erect body? And what kind of repair work is done to see that he can walk again?
Well, you're correct. It's a critical piece of support for standing and walking. And again, Dr. Golden would be a better person to answer that question. But our orthopedic trauma surgeons are very good, and they can work miracles.
In that vein, there was no nerve damage or anything like that that would impair his ability?
I think also I will sort of stop at the really detailed assessment of each individual injury. Again, we sort of decided that we weren't going to go quite there today.
I know you can't say for sure, but has there been any thought to downgrading his condition?
I have not given much thought to word choice as of yet. We've been awfully busy.
To what?
I haven't given much thought to that kind of word choice yet. I have to admit I find that challenging because there's not really strict definitions. Your idea of critical and my idea of critical and Donna's idea of critical are probably all radically different. I think it's sort of a misperception that those terms are well defined, so I usually steer away from them.
You said he was in critical when he came in imminent risk of death. While he's still in critical, is the imminent risk of death been lifted?
I think that his risk of death right now is substantially lower than when he came in. And certainly, whatever you think of the word critical, he was as critical as you can be when he came in, so there was no controversy about word choice then.
Maybe a couple more questions. Any other?
Does the risk of infection increase with each surgery?
No, I wouldn't say that. It increases over a period of time. Usually, infections typically don't happen in the first couple days, but then you enter a time period where infections are more common, regardless of surgery yes or surgery no.
What do you think the next step will be in his treatment right now? An additional operation? Where are we going from here?
Yes, he has additional operations that he will need before leaving the hospital.
Is there a recuperation period between now and whenever the next operation would be? I mean, I guess I don't know how aggressive you would be in sort of that timetable.
Yeah, I think that the next operation would likely take place within 48 hours, but it's a pretty dynamic decision-making process. What typically takes place when patients are severely injured like this is called damage control surgery. And what that means is that rather than trying to do everything in one operation on day one, we generally stage the operations. The first operation is dedicated usually mainly to bleeding control, and the other types of work you have to do are staged for later operations.
You said infection was the greatest
Infection is a significant risk.
Dr. Sava, do you see Dr. Scalise returning to work in his full capacity?
I think so. I think that's a good possibility.
A year, 6 months, hard to say.
Hard to say.
Thank you all very
Is he
much.
expected to make a full recovery? Is he expected to make a full recovery at peak when it's all done?
I think that an excellent recovery is a good possibility.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have the printed statement available for you here.